eye citation, and a moment of silence.
Am I audible?
Yalah, bila macam ni, dia
Ah,
macam kata,
can you guys hear me?
tak boleh.
I think that's a yes.
Lepas hari
To non-Muslim are welcome to pray according to your belief. Al-Fatiha.
Alamat senang Bukit Jalil, tapi dalam pilihan Bukit Jalil tu dalam tu, dia punya tepi macam tepi jalan je. Tepi jalan apa nama dia? LS event.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يغني نعمة ويكافئ مزيدا يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي
Dekat tepi kat ni NS event space nak.
sorry اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد اللهم إنا نسألك سلامة في الدين وعافية في الجسد وزيادة في العلم وبركة في الرزق وتوبة قبل الموت ورحمة عند الموت ومغفرة بعد الموت اللهم هون علينا في سكرات الموت والنجاة من النار والأقوى عند الباب اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك يا الله يا رب يا رحيم. You are the one who created the wonders of the moon and the sun, the skies and the sea. The earth and sun, our friends, our relatives in heaven. You are the most merciful and gracious one. Grant us strength with your radar, so we will become blissful and successful people eternally. Ya Allah, amid this current pandemic, keep us away from COVID-19. We seek refuge in you from this disease. Bless us all with peace, with health and happiness. With that, that's our program today. So I will get it. We'll get your rahmah. The more it start to in a second. Please put us in the fill lana wa tana wa fana fi dunya. Allahumma fil lana dhunubana wa kaffir anna sayyi'atina wa tawaffana ma'al abrar. Amin ya rabbal alamin. Thank you for your time.
Amin. Amin ya Rabbal Alamin. Thank you Muhammad Amal binti Muhammad Sabri for the recitation. Before we start, I will invite Mr. Prashant Kumar. Please say.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Anis, and a very good morning to all of you watching here in your section this morning, so that we can share a bit about your mental health and also some of our advocacy work. So hopefully, Anita will be able to share a bit more about all of that later. So my name is Prashant. I'm a clinical psychologist with MIAS by training. So I've been with MIASA for about 5 or 6 months now, and yeah, I would like to take some time, if it's all right with every morning, to share a bit about some breathing exercises. Okay, so if I have to start just by mentioning these breathing exercises, they're actually one of the most basic stress reduction techniques that we recommend to a lot of
Fobia tak bagi fobia orang ramai ni kan. Sebab dia memang orang yang bersiko dia dah pencin kan. So ada darah tinggi dia. So memang pasal COVID ni memang orang ramai apa semua tak.
No internet.
Makan dah hotspot sendiri.
Itulah. Janganlah.
Everyone is ready.
Macam kecil.
So
So tahu?
maybe we'll just take a couple of breaths to settle ourselves, everyone. You can take a few moments to just be still in your body and allow yourself to become aware of where your mind is now. Perhaps it can be very helpful if you just close your eyes, because sometimes when we have our eyes open, there can be a lot of visual distraction. So to help us focus on our breath, it might help to just close your eyes for the duration of this exercise. So if you close your eyes and just allow yourself to be in a comfortable position, just take a few moments to be very still in your body and your mind. Take a second to notice some of the thoughts that may be crossing your mind, whether it's good or bad or neutral. Just pay attention to it. And if you're ready, you can gently start to bring awareness to your breath. Okay, take note of how you're breathing right now. And maybe we can start properly by taking 2 full breaths. So 1 breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. 1 more breath in through the nose and out through your mouth. Now everyone keep breathing. Just allow your breath to settle and find its natural rhythm in and out, and all the while keeping your attention focused on your breath. And as you're breathing in and out, hopefully you're settling into a very calming rhythm. Just try to take note of where you feel your breath most strongly. Could be in your nose, could be in your lip as the air passes through. Could be your neck, could be your throat, could be your chest. Wherever you notice it most strongly, just pay attention to it. Don't try to change your breathing too much to avoid it. Just pay attention to it. And keep breathing in and out. The air going in through the nose and out through your mouth. And normally around this time, ladies and gentlemen, your mind might start drifting away. You might notice that your thoughts start to drift towards other things that concern you. Perhaps you're even feeling bored. And if you do notice your thoughts drifting away to whatever other topic, just tell yourself it's okay. It's not an issue. Just be aware of that. And once you're aware of that, just gently return your attention back to your breath. Each breath in and out, in and out. Just keeping your full attention on your breaths. Same again, anytime it starts to drift away, it's fine. It's not an issue. Just bring your attention back to your breath. As you breathe in through your nose, just be aware. Notice that you're breathing in. And as you breathe out through your mouth, just be aware that you're breathing out through your mouth. There's no need to visualize it too much or count or try to either speed up or slow down your breath. As long as you feel comfortable, just keep your attention on your breath. Perhaps you can imagine the air going in and out like the ebb and flow of a gentle wave at the beach. And throughout this exercise, it's normal for your breathing to change from time to time, the speed at which you're breathing, and that's fine. That's your body will do this naturally. There's no need to force it to do something it doesn't want to do. So if it's all right with everyone, I'll just let you continue for maybe another 10 or so seconds.
Kelapa lah.
Just in and out,
Sangat you.
focusing on your breath.
Boleh seorang tu.
Okay. All right. So I'll leave everyone to it. Whenever you're ready, you can return back to our session. Thank you so much for those of you who are willing to participate in that short demo. I hope it helped create a bit of relief, and hopefully everyone feels a little bit more refreshed, especially with an early morning session like this. So maybe before I turn the floor back over to our host today, I'd just like to explain a bit more about the technique that we just did, about the exercise that we just did. So in terms of the aims, the whole point of this particular exercise, which is called mindful breathing, is to simply be mindful of one's breath. Just the act of more mindfully monitoring our breaths can have numerous benefits, but the chief reason it may be beneficial is for this reason. So some of you may have heard of this thing called the fight or flight system. And the opposite of the fight or flight system is the rest and relax system. So when we're very stressed or very anxious, it is actually the fight or flight system that we are activated. This is the system that would be activated if, for example, you found yourself in a very unfortunate position of facing down a tiger or a lion somewhere in the future. So obviously, if you're facing a tiger or a lion, it's not really helpful for our bodies to be in a relaxed position, because a decision has to be made, right, about how to get away from the predator. So it's normally for those kind of situations where the fight or flight will be activated, and in a day-to-day context, we'll normally have the system activated when we're feeling a bit stressed. So some of you may have heard of the term between distinction between good and bad stress. So when it's a good stress, it means this system is activated, but it's activated to a level that actually allows us to have the energy and the drive to do the things that we need to get done, and make the decisions that we need to make in order to function in our daily lives. But where it can become problematic is if it reaches too high a level. So if it's at such a severe level, when the fight or flight system is activated too much or too frequently, what normally happens is we actually lose the ability to do what we need to do. We can't focus, we can't concentrate, etc. So techniques like this are applicable for those kind of situations where we need to kind of just take the temperature down a little bit, try and deactivate that fight or flight system and activate what's called the opposite, which is the rest and relax system. Right? So that's actually the function of techniques like this. And when it comes to breathing, there's actually loads of different techniques that you can look up, many different techniques that we share with our clients in our sessions. And this is just one of them. So if you found this helpful, there are numerous guides online, which you can just Google, and you can hopefully try this on your own. It also helps when you are first starting out, you're first trying these new exercises, to have probably a video guide or something like that. It can just help guide your practice when you're doing it to start. And in addition to just making us be more mindful of our breath itself, is actually also a method more broadly to train our attention, these kind of techniques. Because when we're very stressed, very anxious, our attention, as I'm sure a lot of you guys will know, our attention can start to go all over the place, and we can't think straight. So this is actually an exercise in attention as well, just getting us to focus on a very particular thing. And hopefully through lots of practice, you'll then gain the ability to focus a little bit better on what you need to focus on, particularly in situations where you're feeling a bit stressed and anxious and so forth. So my final thoughts on this exercise is, firstly, because it is no different to like playing an instrument, really. So when you first learn to pick up an instrument, whether it's a guitar or any other instrument, for example, you don't immediately pick up a guitar and go on stage and perform in front of people, right? So similarly, with breathing, it's a skill. It's a skill that needs to be sharpened, and it's not something that you master overnight. So it can only be mastered through lots and lots of practice. And we were always advised to practice first in situations where you don't feel too stressed, because as we mentioned, when we're stressed and anxious, we can our attention and concentration goes all over the place. So when we're learning something new, it's probably not helpful to be practicing when we're in that state. So as far as possible, try and find a time of day where you feel a bit more relaxed to begin with, and then you can start practicing. And then hopefully over time, once you've learned to master that skill of really monitoring your breath, then you can start to apply it in situations where you actually do feel a little bit stressed. So hopefully
Hello.
once the skill has been sharpened, has been mastered,
Waalaikumsalam.
then you
Ya.
start to do it in front of
Ya,
people, right?
Panya.
So on the instrument analogy, it's then you can
Kami
go
di
and
rumah
perform
lagi
in front of
ni.
people. And then for these kind of breathing
Ah,
exercises, then you can go and use
datanglah
it
dulu
in
rumah.
the situations where you really need it. Lah. And as far as possible, yeah, practice a lot. As far as possible, we
Ah,
want to make it a habit.
kejap
We
Ajak
want to
tanya
make
ibu.
it a way of
Bu,
being,
kita
a way
lambat
of
lagi nak
living,
gerak ke
rather
macam
than
mana?
just
Diorang
something
dah,
you use only when you need it.
jadinya
That
jumpa kat
can
sana
be
je
a
lah.
lot more helpful if you can make it more of a
Kita orang nak
habit.
gerak dah ni.
So I think
So,
that's all I
jumpa
really
kat sana
have
je
to
lah.
share for this morning. Hopefully,
Abang kat mana?
it's been helpful, and it's something that all of you can really apply
Okay,
in
boleh.
begin to apply in your day-to-day
Okay,
life.
jumpa kat sana.
Because obviously, for all of us, there's no shortage of
Tempat dekat belah
obstacles
mana?
and struggles that we'll have to deal with either now or in future. So it's little things like this. If we can learn to master, hopefully it can create a bit of relief. Not to solve the problems or to solve the obstacles that we're facing, but hopefully just to at least put us in a bit of a better headspace, have our minds be a bit clearer so that we can then make decisions and then focus on what we need to focus on lah, on a day-to-day life, in our day-to-day lives. Okay, so with that, I think thank you so much for your attention, for your participation in this very brief session. I'll turn the floor over back to our host, Ms. Anis. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Prashant Wasantakumar, clinical psychologist from YASA, for this insightful information regarding breathing techniques and conducting our breathing session for today. Without further ado, let us introduce to you our amiable panel for today's program, which is Puan Anita binti Abu Bakar, the founder and president of the Mental Illness Awareness and Support Association, MIASA, a mental health advocacy and peer support group NGO based in Petaling Jaya.
I don't know.
You might like to know Puan Anita graduated with a bachelor degree in Computer Information System with a minor in Management Information System. She also had a Master of Business Administration in Islamic Banking and Finance from the International Islamic University of Malaysia, IIUM. Following with one of her programs under MIASA named Journey to Recovery and Kembali Shifa that has aired in EKFM, reaching out to those struggling with mental health disorder and caregivers. She is also the founder and managing director of Kaiser Darussalam Publications. Over the year, she has been guest speaker and panelist in many conferences and programs such as the Good Practice Services, Promoting Human Rights and Recovery in Mental Health 2019 in Trieste, Italy, where she presented on No Restraint. Besides that, she has made appearances in Channel UK Show, Bernama TV, Astro, NTV7, RTM, NX Now, Bernama Radio, Sina, NST, Berita Harian, The Star, and more. Wow, what an abundance of achievement Puan Anita has throughout the years. Doesn't this make all of us excited for the sharing session? Before that, to tell you about Miasa, it is a mental health advocacy and peer support group based in Petaling Jaya, founded in September 2017. Recently, Miasa became a pioneer in shaping the mental health ecosystem toward a recovery model approach by establishing the Orchid Clubhouse, which served as a crisis management and activity center made available for all. Miasa continued to work towards the goal of building a comprehensive mental health care system through various efforts and partnerships. While waiting for Puan Anita, we will watch some videos provided by Miasa.
I have always been a very driven person. I used to be a perfectionist, and it helped me to achieve the numerous things in life. But slowly, things around me changed. People started to disappear. I don't know how or when they disappeared, but I did realize something had changed inside of me.
For something that can be seen, which can be easily identified, diagnosed, and prevented, that for physical illness. For something that's concealed, hidden very well by the person, but cause so much problem, that's the difference between physical illness and mental illness. From biological perspective, brain has chemical substance which can affect brain's function, which then affect the way we think and behave. Normally, more than just the physical factors, more than just the food and nutrition that can affect the brain's function. Before we make a diagnosis, we examine patient's life from different perspectives. We take schizophrenia as an example. In regards to illusion and hallucination, modern science tend to conclude the symptoms are related to changes in the brain. We will examine the patients looking for other factors which could be related to social, psychological, and also the biological factors of the person.
Around that time, I realized that I was constantly worried about things that I couldn't control and fell into a deep, dark hole. I then realized it's not that people were disappearing from my life, but it was I who shut myself out to the whole world.
We are a multidimensional creature. At the core of man is the spiritual essence. The one that translates the mind or the spiritual activity is the brain. The brain translates the mind to the external world. The mind can be translated as, and the akal here. The akal, we can call it as the spiritual heart. We are led to believe that this physical reality is the only reality there is. Doing what I'm doing easily detect there are other hidden forces. So where's the place of the brain in all this? What is the connection between the brain and the spiritual heart? The very core of man is the heart. It's manifested to the external reality through the brain. So if the heart is corrupted, there will be some effect on the brain. So if you treat the heart, automatically you are also treating the mind.
If you know about anxiety and depression, you know that it's not a full-on thing all the time. It comes and goes, and you learn a lot of coping mechanisms.
There's times that you will be fine. There's also time that you feel that everything is like very dark.
Communication is a vital part of treatment. If we don't talk, if we don't speak, people may think that we don't have problems.
Throughout my recovery, I found that physical, mental, and spiritual are interrelated to form a cohesive treatment.
I'm fighting.
I'm isolated.
I'm numb.
I'm very exhausted. Assalamualaikum. Hello everyone. My name is Amina Johar. I have been diagnosed with MDD and anxiety disorder for 2.5 years. What it feels like to have this mental illness is like you are in a constant storm and you feel trapped.
Nama saya Zainal, dah didiagnose dengan dysthymia dan anxiety disorder. Saya dah didiagnose selama 2 tahun. Rasa seperti robot, tak bernyawa. Sampai kata tak boleh buat apa-apa pun. And it's feel like very numb.
My name is Farid Zahir. I usually go by Farid. I'm 25 years old and I was diagnosed with MDD and anxiety disorder when I was hospitalized in PPUM 2 years back. Generally speaking, how it feels like is that it's different extremes. One day I can sleep for 1 hour and I'll be fine. Another day I can't sleep at all. I get angry and sad some days, and different days I'll just be fine. Yeah, so it's that, and the feeling of hopelessness, of being not good enough and things like that. It's a constant thing in life, being numb, not being able to do anything. You want to be productive, but at the same time you just procrastinate because you just don't want to deal with things. So yeah, that is what I've been feeling all this while. So yeah, that's my story.
Hi, my name is Dan, and I'm probably the oldest in this group. I've been diagnosed with depression and anxiety. Life really became meaningless. If 40, now I'm 65, so it's been 20 years, and life really becomes to feel very meaningless after you go on for so long, you know.
Hi everyone, my name is Zulaika and I'm 25 years old. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in 2015. For me, what it feels like to struggle with these illnesses is that I feel like I lose myself completely. I do tend to lose myself and lose my rationality and my sense of happiness and cheerfulness. So I would say that is how I feel when I do struggle with these things.
Sana dah tentu ada kerja. Wah, dia sebenarnya dia duduk lah. Memang ya pun. Yalah, dah kahwin dah sana.
You know, I came into the mental health space just bringing my condition to the table and also an idea that I had. Jadi daripada situlah tercetusnya penubuhan Miasa sendiri kerana saya mahukan ataupun saya bervisikan pada waktu itu supaya agar Miasa ini boleh menjadi satu platform ya, supaya mereka yang ada penyakit mental tidak merasa keseorangan. They have a place to go, a safe space. They feel empowered to share their stories, to seek help, and ultimately to be able to reintegrate into society and lead normal and productive lives.
Hai, masa bilik pula? Tunggu.
Mental illness does not discriminate, but sometimes people do. We feel that the illness is unique and impossible to overcome. We can't seem to find the way out and become trapped in this illusion of the mind. We then come to a point where we will be fighting our own demons and we allow the fear to conquer us. We forget the most important thing that we've lost. We forget that Allah is always by our side and will never leave us. We must tell ourselves that we are strong enough to overcome this test. You are not alone.
and it is my honor to present the award to the winner, Anita Abu Bakr. Congratulations, Anita. I have the privilege of knowing you and seeing your work. I invite you now to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ratna. I'm speechless but honored and grateful. I've never won an award since my diagnosis and doing this work. And I am very grateful and I appreciate the inclusion very much. All praises is to God.
So I hope all of you enjoy the videos. And without wasting time, let us welcome Puan Anita to proceed with our main agenda of the day. Puan Anita, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Anis. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and a very good morning, everyone. Anis, is my voice okay? Yeah, okay. Yes. All right, thank you so much to the University of Sultan Zainal Abidin, the organizers. Thank you so much for inviting me in today's session. I think this is a very much needed topic, obviously, being in the now in the endemic phase, but when the pandemic hit us, a lot of people were really impacted in terms of their mental health, the psychological impact, their emotional health was affected as well, particularly students, obviously. And data and research is out. We know that a lot of people have fallen into having anxiety disorder, depression, contributing factors are present. Risk factors have increased. So obviously more people are struggling today. Across the globe, prevalence of depression and anxiety have more than doubled. Hence why the discussion of mental health is very crucial. So thank you so much for highlighting this issue. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides. How much time do I have, Anis?
Jangan kacau ni. Abang kat luar. Jangan kacau komputer. Faham?
Okay, Anis is probably... Anyone else can tell me how much time do I have, and can you guys see my slides?
Yes, you have an hour.
Oh, I have an hour.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll be presenting on advocacy and moving forward, and from what I understand from the brief, it would be more about signs and symptoms. So just to bring a little bit of context to our discussion today. Okay, hang on, yeah. I don't know why that happens sometimes. Okay, so bringing the context into the discussion today, I would like to talk a little bit about stigma. And so before I begin, I will be sharing a couple of videos. And what we want to do, obviously, is we want to be able to advocate more effectively together. And so, I would encourage all of you, at least in your own capacity, to talk about it, to be mindful of our words, so that we can all reduce stigma collectively. And of course, there are a lot of mental health NGOs, on the ground in the community that you can, volunteer with, and that way, NGOs can get more help, and you guys can learn via contact-based education. That means interacting with people with the condition, so that we can improve mental health literacy. We can increase empathy and compassion, and we understand more. And obviously, when we understand more, it will translate in better treatment and better support and solutions, especially in the community. So obviously, we want to begin now and here. When we talk about mental health disorders, about mental health, even there's a lot of stigma in society, and stigma is something that I call the true poison of it all, because it hinders a person from getting the help that they very much need and require. So what are some of the stigma, the languages, right, that we often use? Tak kisahlah bahasa Melayu ke, bahasa Inggeris ke kan? Man up, that's what we typically say. So the stigma surrounding mental health is prevalent, obviously, but even more so men's mental health, right? So we say man up, boys don't cry. Dia kena ingat Tuhan. Orang yang ada penyakit mental lemah iman, contohnya weak-willed. And then we use toxic positivity, and sometimes not done deliberately, but because you lack the knowledge, and hence why it's very crucial to seek knowledge, and we want to be, transformative in our actions, right? So how do we promote action? So advocacy is really important to spurring, actions at all levels. So orang lain lagi susah, don't mind them, just get over it. Seriously, what's wrong with her? Takut aku nak kawan dengan orang mental. So these are some of the words that we use that really reinforces stigma. So I want to share with you this video really quickly, and this is actually a video that I feel is really impactful because it really portrays how orang kata betapa dahsyatnya stigma and how prevalent it is in society, not only in Malaysia but really across the globe. And obviously the pandemic has really helped in reducing that stigma. We see mental health literacy has improved. People today feel more encouraged, more braver, because obviously the normalization has happened because a lot of people now understand and have a glimpse of mental health struggles because of COVID-19, right? A lot of uncertainties, there's a lot of fear, panic, anxiousness, especially when when the pandemic first hit, and it overwhelms understanding, right? We don't know. We don't really understand it. How long are we going to be in this situation? So it created a lot of anxiousness, and of course the huge impact of it, the economic impact, right? People losing jobs, reduction of income, losing loved ones, being disconnected, or orang kata terputus daripada dunia luar kan sebenarnya, because you're cut off from your social support system, from your effective coping mechanism. So we all felt that hit until today. Actually, there's still a lot of people going through stress, a lot of stress, anxiety, and obviously people that already battle mental health disorders, they feel it more, and people with disabilities, obviously they are impacted and affected more. Being left furthest in society, and when a tragedy, when pandemics or epidemics happen, or even famine, war, for example, they are left furthest. And this is true throughout, and we've seen it throughout human history. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and share this video, and then we can discuss a little bit about it.
As if we could tell what is wrong about a person from what is right just on sight. As if wrong was just a simple matter of right or left. And if you're right, then you won't be left to wander on your own. It's normal to feel left out and be all alone. That you have to deserve fitting right in. So you keep everything in, because what matters is what's inside of you. The more you keep, the better you think you get. Because people only understand different when it is an accent or a color or a sense, or even when your body is breaking from within, you try to behave the same as everyone else, and feeling that you're lying through your teeth. Spirits through stitches that grafted their words onto your skin. And you're not okay. Get over it. Keep on. Don't mind it. They didn't mean it. You don't deserve it. Wonder what it would be like if they actually did. Maybe that was why some of us tried giving up. Living was already hard enough because it works a little differently for us than it does everyone else. So we tried to find ways to set our minds to rest, only to discover that dying was harder. Our souls just wouldn't let go. Minds couldn't tell why. You start wondering what is wrong with your body. Sometimes it feels like the wrong body. But your heart is an old car doing 180, and every interaction is a traffic collision, because every pulse is like an accident about to happen but never really does, feeling like it already did, until crashing is the only way of resting that you can think of. You wonder if your body could last the distance. It's going to break because your spirits feel like it already did. Maybe that's why some of us drown ourselves in them. Because that's the only way to raise them when you're sinking. Because addiction is the only way you hold on to something. The same with how memories hold on to you. the regrets,
Kenapa dia macam tu?
silences, comments on your timeline, the voices. Dengar dengan dia. Hati dia gelap. She looks depressed. He likes to be by himself. Dia kena bersyukur. Dia kena ingat Tuhan. Like how they do. Using God's name in vain to say He created everyone the same. Not realizing there is a difference between equality and reality and how that affects your sanity while still having the audacity to treat you differently. This is a matter of the mind. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. If they don't mind, we don't matter. It's about time we all do. We're all great minds in the making. Refine our senses, assign our minds to read the signs and learn the symptoms instead of being quick to define. Realize that some minds are more like minds that can be tricked by our lines. Bodies into battlefields of a war that is lost in the silences. A heart breaks in a room. There's no one else around. Does it make a sound? Stigma is the lock you put outside that room, keeping them in. There's a label that we put on that door saying, leave them, because we were too afraid to listen, to look at ourselves, only to it's too late. What did he mean? What did she say? Why did we see? What did we do? Instead of just asking. Apa?
Okay, so this was our Great Minds campaign, hashtag Apa Khabar, end of 2019, and it's I feel it's a very impactful video because it really shows what kind of impact stigma has, and how people are really affected, especially men's mental health. And even at Miyasa kan, we see people reaching out, especially men, when it is already very severe. And how do we know it's severe? It's because they come in and they're already crying, they feel chronic emptiness, they are already battling suicidal thoughts and ideation during the time. So maybe I can ask a little bit. Maybe mungkin Anis lah sebagai orang kata MC kita hari ni kan, Anis. Anis, what do you think when you watch the video? Apa yang Anis dapat? Maybe some key points ke, Anis? Silakan.
In my opinion, what I got from that is we shouldn't be too critical of people that has this
mental struggles, yeah?
Yes, mental health struggles.
Yeah, that's so important. We shouldn't be quick to judge. We should seek knowledge. If we don't understand, lagilah, we shouldn't be, saying things or judging them, right? Because we don't necessarily know what their struggles are. And the thing about people with mental health condition is also because their challenges are not immediately evident to the normal person, kan? Because you cannot see it. Macam kita tak dapat lihat dengan mata kasar, kan? Apatah lagi kita tak dapat gapai sebenarnya dengan minda normal, right? You can't see it with your naked eye. So that's really, the challenges and the harm of the reinforcement of stigma is because then the person will not reach out because they feel ashamed, they feel afraid because of the label, because people will judge them. So hopefully through today's discussion, we can, do more and be advocates in that sense. So thank you so much, Anis, for sharing that. So I wanted to share this analogy. This was actually created by the US Department of Health and Human Services, Substance Abuse and Mental Services Administration, actually in the US. And this is an analogy that I really feel it's really brilliant. So if you look at this picture right here, you see this man in this hole, right? So just for, for sake of discussion, let's say this person's name is Dan, right? So Dan falls into this deep and dark hole, right? And he can't get out. So one day, his doctor passes by and he calls up to his doctor. He said, "Doc, I'm stuck in this hole. Can you please let me out?" And the doctor, throws in all these medications, right? Antidepressants, antipsychotic medications. Can Dan get out from the hole? Of course he can't. And then his counselor walks by, and his counselor he calls up to his counselor and says, Miss Jane, I'm stuck in this hole. Can you please let me out? And then Miss Jane said, well, just practice, deep breathing exercise. Try to implement relaxation techniques. Can Dan actually get out from this hole? Of course he can. And then his teacher passes by and he yells up to his teacher and he says, teacher, can you please let me out? I'm stuck in this rut. And then his teacher said, remember all these things that I taught you in school? Try to implement this and, get yourself out. Can Dan get out from the hole? Of course he can. So then one day his friend passes by. Let's say his friend's name is Anis, right? So he says, Anis, I'm stuck in this hole. Please let me out. And what Anis does is Anis jumps into the hole. And then Dan looks at Anis and says, Anis, why did you jump into this hole? Now we're both stuck. And Anis looks at Dan and Anis says, Dan, I've been in this hole before and I can show you the way out. So this, my dear friends, is the power of peer support, right? So a lot of people don't know that peer support is evidence-based. Rakan-rakan seperjuangan sendiri, right? So peer support has been evidence-based since 1999. So it's been 23 years. It's particularly new in Malaysia, the introduction of peer support, and especially because, MIASA is the first peer support group, mental health advocacy and peer support group in Malaysia where, the majority of us are people with lived experience, right? Either peers or caregivers. But peer support and the advocacy of it, happened many, many years ago. In the 1920s, it began, just a little bit of history. And then in the 1930s, it became part of Alcoholic Anonymous. I'm sure many of you know. Alcoholic Anonymous came to birth, and they are actually the ones that have paved way for peer support. And, eventually, after years of advocacy, it became evidence-based in 1999, and that is exactly what MIASA is all about, and peer support changes lives. So what are the evidence, right, guys, that tells us about peer support groups, networks, and also programs? Because when you are in a group setting, right, bila kita duduk dalam keadaan berjemaah, obviously, we feel that there is hope. Kita boleh tumpang kekuatan semangat rakan-rakan. It increases self-esteem and confidence, right? It increases empathy, and the camaraderie makes us feel that, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe there's hope. And this is actually what really happens, right? So empowerment happens, we feel braver, we feel more encouraged, we feel that, okay, I can actually recover, seeing my friends can recover as well. So it increases, empowerment, increases sense of control, and we feel inclusive, right? It's a safe space, and so together we can learn from each other. And what is important is to eventually become independent, grow, and thrive with the condition that we're going through, right? Because you can. This is important to also understand. And just to give you a little bit of background about MIASA, because it's very important that you know what we do, so that you're able to refer other people if you find it necessary, and if you yourself are indeed going through a mental health struggle. So we, our objective is to help people and save lives. We do a lot of awareness works, obviously advocacy, which is a big thing in MIASA, and providing both relief and livelihood support. And just to give you a little bit of insights, these are the numbers. A lot of people are struggling, guys, on the ground. A lot of people have reached out for the help, alhamdulillah. And obviously we're overstretched. One, because more people are reaching out. Two, because, we need to find, funds at the same time in order for us to sustain, the job that we do. And obviously because we provide free services, essential services for the B40s. And so, constantly trying to find projects, doing all this work, right? And what are the services and support available? So as much as possible, we provide alternative solutions in the community, coming from, a holistic approach, a recovery model, and of course, peer-centered, right? So we provide peer support, family support, circle time of support, group sessions, WhatsApp, consultation, because a lot of times consultation is very much needed, because you want to really understand, what you're going through, what can work for you, what are the options, and it must be, supported decision. It must be informed, and it must be informed consent. And that is what we at MIASA, this is our role at MIASA, right? We do not want, any forced decisions or treatments being made, because coercion is very prevalent in Malaysia. A lot of, especially clinical settings, promote, or not to say promote, but implement coercion. So it's forced treatment, forced medication. The person is forced, being admitted into hospitals, etc., etc. And then we do home visits as well for those that are not able to, come to our place or aren't able to get treatments in hospital, be it because of the severity of the condition, because they're disabled, because they live alone, or they're far in the rural areas, for example. Yeah. We have our crisis helpline. Please remember this. Macam mana kita ingat the pizza number kan? Please remember a crisis helpline number. Any number it could be, so that it can help you, it can help other people. Contohnya talian kasih 15299. MIASA Malaysia's number is 1-800-820066. Tak susah sebenarnya nak ingat. It's very important when we have these numbers, especially if a person is in crisis, because when you know this number, you will pick up that phone and call when you're in so much pain that we feel nobody can help us, when we feel we're really alone in our struggles. Yeah. We also provide, art therapy, drama, dance, mental health assessment, therapeutic assessment, psychological services, all these different types of therapy, spiritual therapy, which is one of the big things at MIASA, because spirituality is a big component, especially to my own recovery. And, especially people that are going through suicidal thoughts, ideation, or contemplating suicide, it must be grounded in the faith and iman, in God, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That would help to hinder a person from the unimaginable act of suicide, as an example. But of course, it must be a holistic approach. But spirituality really helps. We've seen, a lot of our peers, kalau tak ada sokongan sekalipun, if they're not getting treatment, but if they hold on to that component, it really holds them together, alhamdulillah. Talk therapy, counseling, supported employment, job placement, because a lot of people find it, challenging to sustain their jobs because of, obviously a lot of reasons. There's a lot of stigma in the workplace, awareness programs, volunteering opportunities on community projects, right? And so that's a little bit about MIASA. Okay, again, I think when they were doing the slides, they didn't off the auto thing, so it's here. I apologize. So we want to talk a little bit about the situation in Malaysia, so that we all understand how it is and why is it important, right? So if we look at the mental health in Malaysia, we're looking at Malaysia is one of the 3 remaining ASEAN countries that still criminalize suicide. And 500,000 of Malaysians, even prior to the pandemic, were already depressed. So imagine today, right, with all the contributing factors and risk factors that have increased. About 1,000 Malaysians, well, this is the one that is reported, right, attempted suicide in 2020. And there's only about 300 plus registered psychiatrists. So imagine a 32 million population. We're looking at, maybe 20-30% having, anxiety and depression. But these are the numbers of clinical psychiatrists that we have. And clinical psychologists are even lower, about 200 plus, serving, thousands of people. And that is why to access services is really a challenge. We're looking at 10% of those between the age of 13 to 17 years old that have, suicide planning, 7.9% going through mental health problems, 24% of those 60 years old and above, the geriatric groups, going through a mental health issue, and 29.2% of Malaysian adults, guys, ages 16 years old and above, going through a mental health issue. Not yet a mental health condition, but already struggling with mental health issues, maybe difficulty sleeping, maybe mood swings, irritability, maybe manifestation in physical symptoms, all these kind of things. Yeah. and 424,000. Ni angka yang sangat besar. There's a huge number, guys, and a very, very worrying number. And again, if you look at it, this is National Health and Morbidity Survey 2019. This is the latest publication. So imagine today how much more, or how many people or kids are affected. Obviously, rural areas are more affected because of the consistent stressors. And a lot of it is financial difficulties. Kalau kita tengok pun rasanya minggu lepas ya, there's a case about this guy that was reported in the media that ended his life. And it was obviously because of financial difficulties, debts, banyak hutang, tak tahu macam mana nak bayar, no income coming in, not seeing a way out, feeling very trapped and hopeless. And this is how people act upon ending their lives, which is really unfortunate, because then people don't see the signs, people surrounding them don't help, because it doesn't necessarily mean you've got to orang kata give the help as in funds, but it could be providing that emotional support as well, kan? And then maybe providing a listening ear, looking at it from a different lens altogether. So kadang-kadang bila kita menghadap problem hari-hari, we don't really we're not able to see that there is indeed a solution, kan? So it's very important that we're able to support one another, especially during these trying times, kan? And of course, the other thing that is very important for all of us to understand is suicidal thoughts and ideation is a symptom of a condition. Khususnya lah kan, penyakit mental, kemurungan, depression as an example. And if you treat the depression, the suicidal thoughts and ideation can go away. And these are all really intrusive things. Dia macam kalau kita demam kan, kalau demam rasa badan panas, batuk, sesama, yang kita tak boleh tahan, right? You can't stop it from coming, these symptoms. Similarly, if you have depression, you can't stop from, the suicidal thoughts to come. Not necessarily in behavior, even in thoughts kan sebenarnya. So people struggle in that way. So I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the vision. And this is actually what happened when we, okay, I apologize again. This is really one of the things that we did via our Malaysia stakeholder meeting, and this was agreed upon our stakeholders, which is fighting stigma and discrimination. These are the resolutions that came about. Yeah, fighting stigma and discrimination, providing supported accommodation, and the right to housing. Because the moment you disclose that you have a mental health condition, you're not able to purchase a house, for example. And a lot of people fall through the cracks of the system and end up homeless because they're going through a mental health disorder, their caregivers pass away, people don't accept them in the workplaces, they're not able to work, not able because, people reject them, employers, don't understand, don't seek knowledge. So it's difficult for them or challenging for them to sustain their jobs, and then they're not able to support themselves, right? No livelihood support. And so this is how they end up homeless, right? So we want to be able to provide these things. And of course, the right to work, the right to quality healthcare, because the right to healthcare obviously is the right of everyone. And closing down mental institution because recovery is in the community. Kita semua tahu, I think a lot of us, especially with the pandemic hit kan, kalau lah nauzubillah kita mendapat COVID-19 kan, we're isolated, we're ill, and then we're cut off from our support system. We're isolated. So just imagine how it feels. Sama juga dengan orang yang ada mental health condition, yang dah lama dah begitu. When you're hospitalized, even in the psychiatric ward in general hospitals, you can't leave the psychiatric ward, you're confined, people get restrained. So institutionalization is not something that we want, our peers to be in. We want them to recover amongst, their own family members and friends. And of course, safe media reporting, because obviously, it's not just about ethical reporting, it must be safe as well. Sebab kalau tak, we are going to trigger the most vulnerable and people, and it can and will lead to suicide contagion and also suicide copycats. I think last year we saw this happening a lot kan sebenarnya, sebab bila ada orang mengakhiri kehidupan melalui bunuh diri, the pictures went viral, the videos went viral, and the people that are more vulnerable were triggered and they followed suit. Jadi biasanya ini yang berlaku. Sebab tu bila ada public figures that end their lives, this shouldn't, be reported in such a way because it will trigger others, and we're not respecting the family's privacy. It's a difficult time for them, and especially when location is disclosed, methods are disclosed, it gives people that idea that, and they will then do the same thing. And so that is what suicide copycat is all about. So the most responsible thing that we can do is actually to delete, guys, these pictures and also these apa orang kata, videos, yeah, when you see it happening. So maybe I can ask one of you, maybe saya nampak Hairunisa Farhana. Hairunisa, what do you think about mental health? Apa mental health tu sebenarnya? Kesihatan mental ni apa sebenarnya? Silakan.
Hi, sorry, can you repeat because my internet is having trouble right now.
Oh, tak apa. Mental health. What do you think mental health is?
For me, it's hard to just like define it, like in a sentence, because it's how some felt. Because for those who can't relate to like someone who is struggling mentally, they can't really understand. For me, mental health is just beyond words. The struggle, yeah, the journey of to actually
yeah,
from it, not that well, but to be stable.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, so a lot of
For me, that's mental health.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, so mental health, is like physical health, right? We all have it, but we don't necessarily focus on mental health kan sebenarnya. And mental illness ataupun mental health disorders is like physical illness. It's an illness, but it's not perceived that way in society, right? Usually a person with a mental health condition ataupun mental illness, kita kata gila, berbahaya, kurang iman, kurang solat, they're dangerous, violent, and all these things. And so a lot of times when we know a person has that condition, automatically, in our minds, we think, oh, the person's crazy, right? Or the person's going to flip out. And then exclusion happens, discrimination happens, especially in the workplaces, where, they don't get that promotion or they don't get that opportunity to go for certain trainings. Maybe people don't even want to go out for lunch with them. What more, to be dating them or to marry people with mental health disorders, right? So mental health is actually like physical health, and what it is actually these are the components. It is how we manage, our stressors, how we interact with our friends, family, colleagues, how we're able to cope with, our stressors in life. And so these are the components. Kita ada emotional, social, spiritual, physical, psychological, and also cognitive. So a lot of times people ask, Puan Anita, my mom has a mental health disorder. Will I get a mental health disorder too? So you cannot inherit a mental health condition, guys, yeah. You can inherit the susceptibility to it. Kecenderungan itu kita boleh inherit, right? But it must be accompanied by a lot of factors. So it must always be multifactorial. So what are the factors? Kita ada predisposing factors kan? Faktor-faktor sedia ada. That means, if when we were in our mom's tummy, for example, kan, bila mak kita mengandungkan kita, there were complications, for example. Ataupun kalau mak kita ada penyakit mental, kita ada kecenderungan tu kan. Kalau ada kombinasi faktor-faktor yang lain. Precipitating factors could be chemical imbalances in the brain, could be loss of a loved one, could be loss of a job, kan, marital problems, etc. Tapi tak cukup. It must be in combination with perpetuating factors, conditions that, situations that make the condition endure. Mungkin severity of the condition, lambat mendapatkan rawatan contohnya, ataupun rawatan tidak mencukupi. So these things in combination can make it worse. Risk factors can people that live in orang kata rural areas with consistent stressors, they are more susceptible. Substance abuse, of course, penyalahgunaan dadah dan alkohol kan, and medical condition. So for example, thyroid can also mirror symptoms of anxiety and depression. So you need to rule out the medical condition. And of course, people that go through critical illnesses, they are more susceptible to the condition. So how do you recognize signs and symptoms of poor mental health? Loss of interest, things that dulunya kita suka, now we don't like it anymore. We feel hopeless, we feel very tired, we are not able to concentrate, we feel very irritable. Mood swings happen, unexplained pains or aches kan, macam sakit bahu ke, sakit belakang, change in eating and sleeping habits, feeling very pessimistic or negative, and then thoughts of ending your life. And of course, all these things, poor mental health can also lead to burnout, and burnout can lead to a mental health disorders if the factors are present. But it must be multifactorial. So you feel the symptoms of burnout, yeah? You feel really, really exhausted. You feel very distant from your work or from your studies. You feel very negative when you go to university, for example, in the classroom, and you're not able to perform well. Sorry. So what are the sources of stress? Okay. So we have all these different stressors, which is the expectation of parents, and usually students feel very pressured, right, with the expectations of parents, and that is why open communication is really, really important, guys. Yeah, family issues, personal expectations, and sometimes it's our own expectations. We are our worst enemy. Not having enough privacy, which happens a lot, yeah, during before this year, masa pandemic. Now we're slowly returning to normal, so even students can go back to universities, go to classes. So it really helps to also have your own space, and juga you can interact and have study groups kan, and you can see your lecturers ataupun your teachers one-to-one, face-to-face, which of course nothing beats face-to-face interaction kan. Sibling squabbles also can be something that could be very annoying. And it affects us, and as this is always, if kalau semua muda-muda lah, kecil-kecil kan, addition of a new family member, especially if we were the only one for so long, contohnya, and of course financial issues. So anxiety and depression, everyone, very, very prevalent, yeah. And these are early signs of anxiety kan, macam tadi lah, muscle tension, palpitation, negative thoughts, kita rasa very overwhelmed, we worry a lot, and we feel very helpless kan. And so anxiety disorder ni memang ada banyak, because obviously penyakit mental ni ada beratus-ratus, 300 plus, and a lot of times now, especially with this pandemic, epidemic ni, ramai orang melalui what we call as panic attacks. I'm sure some of you that are watching have gone through it as well. Doesn't mean that if you have experienced a panic attack that you have a mental health condition, tetapi if you have a mental health condition, you most probably have gone through panic attacks, yeah. So panic attacks ni, kenapa perbincangan ni penting? Because panic attacks are very horrifying. It can be very debilitating, especially if we don't know how to manage it, and we can fall into having anxiety disorder ataupun panic disorder, ya, kalau kita tak tahu and tidak mampu menangani ni dengan baik. So panic attacks ni kita rasa at the moment palpitation, susah nak bernafas, kita rasa perlu sejuk, numbness in fingers and toes. It's like a overwhelming sea of emotions at the same time juga. And kita rasa takut, kita rasa dan kita percayai pada waktu tersebut yang kita akan mati, and that is why it's so horrifying. And the other thing why it can be a very scary experience is because it can happen when we're doing things that we like. Contohnya tengah sembang-sembang dengan kawan-kawan, tiba-tiba berlakunya panic attack, or we're watching Netflix, for example, and we feel that there's no direct trigger. So it's more on the subconscious level. Maybe it's because kita kurang tidur ke, tak cukup tidur contohnya, kurang rehat dan sebagainya. It can also trigger a panic attack, and that is why it's important for us to understand these symptoms so that when we feel it's coming, we know what needs to be done. Deep breathing technique really helps, guys. Grounding, mindfulness, and all these different techniques are available. We share it a lot on Miasa's social media. And I've included some of the techniques here in these slides, so nanti we can share it across here. And I wanted to share with you this video about Julia Paxton. I feel it's really powerful because she herself, have gone through or experienced anxiety and depression, and how today she is an advocate. So please watch this.
My name is Julia and I'm 19 years old. In 2017, was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. I almost lost this battle. I didn't think it was going to get better, but it did. I've had anxiety since I was a little kid. I always had this feeling that something terrible was going to happen. And that presented itself in tightness in my chest. I'd get really shaky. I would have a lot of stomach pain. Those were the physical ways that it came out. For the longest time, I didn't know that was my anxiety. I just knew that was something that happened to me. Around middle school, I started to get depressed. And it progressively got worse as I got into high school. Everything just seemed kind of gray. And a lot of worthlessness, too. I don't have anything to offer. From the outside, I think I hid it pretty well. I was a straight student. I hung out with my friends. I babysat all the time. I was involved in my church youth group. I didn't let people see that there was something going on. That was what stayed closed behind my bedroom door. Things started to feel more heavy. I started to self-harm as a way to cope. I started having suicidal ideation. I told my mom, I don't think I can keep myself safe. And I know my parents were shocked when they knew how bad it actually was. It was on a Sunday night. My mom called Children's, their hotline. I was evaluated by a social worker. And I think it was honestly the first time I was completely open about what was happening. And I told my social worker that I didn't necessarily want to die. And I knew that I needed a break from what was happening, from all the things I was feeling. And death seemed like the only option. I just remember crying to her and being like, I don't know what else to do. Like, I'm stuck. Here I was completely broken. I could barely see the point in staying alive. I felt so ashamed of myself. And these people, they just treated me like a person. I felt validated and I had some hope. And I knew that okay, when I ask for help, help is given and it works. And I knew that this break I was looking for could be found in a hospital room instead of dying. Today, I am in remission from my depression for the first time in who knows how long. I'm getting to know parts of me that aren't just anxious and depressed Julia. I'm clean from self-harm. I'm majoring in social work, and I really want to work in behavioral health with children, specifically in a crisis or inpatient setting. I've started to become really passionate about advocating once I made it to the other side, because I almost didn't make it. You're not at fault for where you are right now. It's okay to be afraid, but I don't want you to give up. Because the thing about depression is it lies. You gotta fight to be here, because it does get better. And all of these lies will eventually go away. You just have to hold on, because it doesn't get to win. It doesn't get to take you. So you're stronger than that, and you're worth more than that. And it's possible.
Tula, so that is the story of Julia Paxton. Maybe I can call a few names, or maybe volunteers. So what do you guys think about, that video? Are you able to maybe relate, on a certain level, with your struggles, right? Being students, especially because, this past, 2 years plus, you guys were really struggling kan sebenarnya. So how was that like for you guys? Maybe saya nampak ni ada Fatimah Ali. Ada ke? Izian Nazihah ke? What do you guys think? How is that? If you want to share, how was that experience for you being in this pandemic? Oh, semua tak nak cakap tu.
Muhammad Amar want to speak.
Muhammad Amar, okay.
Yes.
Because I'm not able
Hello,
to see
babe.
one. Silakan.
Sorry. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if this relates, but I guess at some point during the pandemic, I guess I just got accustomed to the thing that, this heavy feeling that I may be able to relate with. So, just some point I just feel like, I guess that's just how it is. So I don't even know how to feel. Is that normal? It's just something that we mean now.
You mean you feel numb? Is that numbness that you're feeling?
Yeah, sort of like a numbness, but more like it's like there, sometimes like there is something, but I just like, yeah, okay, I guess that's how it is. Okay.
Well, I think one of the things is, of course, because all these emotional struggles and maybe pain that we're feeling right now is totally valid. Maybe that's also one of the things kan, sebabnya everyone or most people are feeling it. Kita tak akan jumpa orang yang tak stress hari ni. Everyone is really stressed at certain levels kan, maybe the levels, the severity is different, tapi everyone is struggling. So mungkin kita rasa macam, why should I be sharing it, when everyone is also feeling it kan, macam benda tu tak valid. Tapi sebenarnya it's really, really valid, guys, to feel this way, especially with everything that has happened. This is something that has, we've never ever experienced this kan, betul tak, dalam, in our lifetime kan sebenarnya. Because the only, the pandemic or the worst pandemic happened dah lama dah kan, 1918 masa Spanish flu punya pandemic. Tetapi COVID-19 we know it's not only COVID-19 virus itself is highly contagious, and then when you get it there's so many other challenges that comes about kan, tetapi the impact of the pandemic itself, which really was a build up of a lot of things, and then when this pandemic berlaku, dia macam it exploded, dia meletup, and it really now it has really highlighted a lot of things kan, how unprepared we were in terms of our health systems, mental health systems, in terms of our education system, and of course countries that have a solid, contohnya education system ke, health systems ke, are able to withstand such shocks better kan. Tapi even then pun people couldn't kan, sebab benda ni is unprecedented. Kita tak pernah melalui sesuatu orang kata tragedi sebegini kan sebenarnya. It hit the whole world. So ini sesuatu perkara yang it's valid, but what is important is we must do something about it. Sebab mental health challenges ni guys, kalau kita tak address benda ni, dia akan bertambah teruk. Ia akan menjadi mudarat, dan kemudian all these other struggles will come in, and as much as possible we want to, kalau boleh kan, prevent ourselves from getting a mental health disorder kan, because take it from me, I'm a person with lived experience, it's hard, it's excruciating pain, it takes a lot of time kan, for us to go through that recovery process, and there are limitations to it as well sebenarnya. Macam kalau even though you've gone through that recovery process, tapi kita ada limitasi sebenarnya. Once you have this condition, yelah, macam orang ada apa-apa penyakit sekalipun kan, kalau orang dah ada kecil manis, takkan nak makan benda yang bergula je setiap hari ya. So itu dia punya limitasi dia kena control and manage, so things like that. So thank you so much for sharing that. And then of course depression kan, depression is also something that is so common, and what we really need to understand with depression is, tengok 2.3%, that's a huge number guys, 500,000 of people. These are the common symptoms. Minimum 2 weeks, 5 of these 9 symptoms. Then you most probably have depression. Seek professional help, get a clinical assessment. Kita boleh buat the DAS test online, depression, anxiety, stress skill test, tapi itu bukan a clinical assessment, but it's a good gauge, right? So if you do it, you find that your results are severe, print it, bring it, go to a health clinic ataupun walk into macam NGOs ke, and then from there you can do a clinical assessment, and when you know what your diagnosis is, then you can get the help that you very much need and require. Then you can get that intervention, and how to move forward from that. Feeling depressed, macam tadi sama juga, the early warning signs tadi tu kan, quite similar, feeling depressed, irritable, losing interest and pleasure, makan lebih, makan kurang, tidur lebih, tidur kurang, losing the ability to focus, you feel tired very easily, kita rasa slowness in movement and also thinking. You feel worthless, and unfortunately, one of the symptoms is also battling suicidal thoughts and ideation. So if we have 5 of these 9 for a minimum of 2 weeks, please seek professional help. Yeah. Common causes pasti ada banyak, as I mentioned earlier. And this is also a video of Catherine, and she went through postpartum depression. She's also hearing impaired, and I feel it's a powerful video. I don't have much time to share this video, but please, this is by BBC. Nanti boleh tengok. So I just wanted to share a little bit more about advocacy and how we move forward from here. About 5-10 minutes. So I feel that being students, being youth, you guys have a really loud voice. You can actually improve and make changes tau. So sebab tu youth advocacy is something that must happen, okay, especially now with the mental health pandemic is no longer a silent pandemic anymore, right? Data has proven it. A lot of people are now going through anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, all the different condition challenges, self-harming, contemplation of suicide, suicidal thoughts, ideation and sebagainya. So there are a lot of things, and of course resorting to harmful coping mechanisms, alcohol, drugs. A lot of people are getting macam orang kata quick solutions, temporary, but it's not obviously effective, and it's even harmful kan sebenarnya. So we want to have orang kata more advocacy work happening. Yeah. So based on UNCRPD, the United Nations Conventions on Rights of Disabilities, and this is a lot of what MIASA does, is to have people included in the community, because recovery must be in the community, right? So how can you be an advocate? These are all the different ways that you can advocate. But for me, as students, just being mindful of your language is also advocating, and it advocates a lot because you are helping to combat stigma and you're not reinforcing it. Dan kemudiannya, obviously, when you see your friends being stigmatized or discriminated in universities, you can speak up. Because a lot of times we see that walaupun mental health literacy has improved, how does that translate in a change of behavior? So that translation remains to be an uphill battle sebenarnya. So what are the barriers? Banyak sebenarnya barriers kat Malaysia ni. And these are just some of it: poor social inclusion, unaffordable care, of course because services are very much concentrated geographically in KL, Selangor, big cities macam Penang contohnya tapi as you go out from the cities and central, all these services thin out, and lack of parity, physical and mental health. This one kita semua tahu, stigma, lack of enforcement of mental health policy, obviously, violations of right and autonomy. I think in the work that MIASA does, we see a lot of our peers experiencing not only stigma, discrimination, tapi human rights abuses. It's as if they don't have a voice. It's as if they don't have their own rights, and it's always being violated kan sebenarnya. And this is actually by Judy Chamberlain. She's a peer and advocate. 2001 dia cakap benda ni sebenarnya. Those who have been diagnosed with mental conditions are not different from other people and want the same basic things out of life: adequate homes, decent places to live, educational opportunities, job training leading to real meaningful jobs, participation in lives of their communities, friends and social relationships, and loving personal relationships. Betul. Sebab apa? Sebab kita tak fokus ataupun kurang pendekatan kepada social determinants of health or mental health. Typically we talk a lot about healthcare. Padahal education is also mental health. Housing is mental health. Transportation is mental health. Social systems is mental health. And if we're able to focus on these things, we can prevent people from going through mental health challenges, falling through the cracks, institutionalized, incarcerated dan sebagainya. And of course, this is one of the things that I always say, because we want to reduce stigma, discrimination and inequity, because this is actually what happens. Remember, masa COVID baru berlaku, everyone was scrambling for vaccines, and then we realized that, not everyone is getting the vaccines. Vaccines pun ada inequity, so it's not in the arms of everyone. So imagine orang yang ada mental health disorders. If you have money, you can access services. But if you don't have money, you either can't or it will take you a long time to access services, and then you're already worse. And then you fall through the cracks of the system. And we want people to be given, people with mental health condition to be given the same, opportunities, their rights, because they too deserve those same chances that we willingly give others, obviously. Kan? So these are all the importance of advocacy. So I don't have much time, but as much as possible, we want to improve the current situation. We want to build, safer and a better world for our future generations and the generations that follow. We want to be able to have more research done. Sebab selalunya orang kata okay, it must be evidence based. Tapi kalau tak buat research, macam mana benda tu nak jadi evidence, so those kind of things. So you can become an advocate, like I said, just by minding your own language, it's already advocating for the cause, supporting your peers, becoming a volunteer, through seeking knowledge, having that, understanding that, oh, sebenarnya that person is acting a certain way, this is why. Sebenarnya the symptoms are such, how do I respond better? How do I support better? So these are the things that you can do. And there's so many examples around the world, many successful models out there, especially Trieste. Trieste has a huge, orang kata this is one of the gold standards, where they closed down mental institutions in the 1970s. They expanded community mental health services 24/7. Their forensic wards are open forensic wards. They have no locked doors, and their suicide ratio has declined for the past 20 years by 50%. It continues to decline, guys. So it's a successful model. You can read it up. And I've also orang kata put in relaxation techniques in here, so you can go through. It's all videos. So when you have time, go through it. The different breathing techniques, grounding techniques, guided imagery. So kita nak imagine and put ourselves in a very relaxing space, be in the present. And of course, just a couple of things about building resilience, because sometimes orang kata, wanita, I think we need to reduce the workload for students, reduce the workload in the workplace. But it's not just about reducing workload, guys. It's about building that resilience so that you're able to, orang kata, go through it. You can tough it out. You can manage what you're going through and grow and thrive in it. So ini penting sebenarnya, because you want to be able to be resilient. Kan kita tak nak bila ada adversity je, kita, orang kata, kita jatuh, kita tak mampu nak menanganinya. So we must be able to build that resiliency, and you can, because resiliency ni kan is like a muscle. You got to work on it, okay? So these are some of the ways that you can build that resiliency. So I've included it here as well. And so I just want to end with this last slide, which is basic helping skills, the 5 elements. Come from a place of empathy and compassion. Listen to understand. Listen for emotions, not to judge. Support each other, especially family members, because families are the closest beings to us. And work together and understand that everyone is different, but we all go through, challenges in life. And these are all infographics so that we know where to get help, how much does it cost, navigating through all these different services that are indeed available. Yeah. So these are the conclusion. So basically, walaupun anxiety is normal, it's obviously subjective. Semua orang melalui anxiety, but when it becomes harmful, you must do something about it. Yeah. Don't wait until you feel really, overwhelmed ataupun so much of negative thinking kan, ataupun going through a lot of panic attacks, contohnya depression also, because there are levels. Like I said, it's also a spectrum. So when you catch all these different signs, do something about it. Yeah. Talk to someone. Let it out to people that you trust, obviously, not just any Tom, Dick and Harry, and have a strong and build a strong orang kata social support system around you. Yeah. So thank you very much, everyone. I will pass it on back to Anis. And again, you don't have to fight this alone. Reach out for help and give yourself that gift of recovery. So thank you so much. I end this with wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Terima kasih semua.
Thank you so much, Puan Anita, for enlightening us about the mental health issue. It is truly relatable for all of us, as we might still be affected by the whole pandemic situation, especially during these post-pandemic conditions, as some of us are still adjusting to the moving pieces. Now, before we proceed to the Q&A sessions, let us take a 5-minute break.
Thank you, Anis. Thank you, everyone.
We are back. Thank you everyone for staying with us. I'm sure most of you are excited for our Q&A session with Puan Anita. So without further ado, anyone who has questions, feel free to open the mic to ask, or you can type the question in the chat box and I will read it out for you. Alia, Anissa have questions?
Hello, Assalamualaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, for Anita, I have a question.
Sure.
Like, there are times that we feel that we know we're feeling anger, feeling sad. But my question is like, how do we validate those feelings? Because at times I found myself seeing the emotion as a third person view. Like I know I'm feeling those emotions, but like how do I actually tap into those emotions and actually feeling it? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Alia. That's actually a very good question. That's why, kan Alia, it's very important that now you recognize that you are indeed having these emotions. So that means you have really good insights now, which is a really positive thing. Tetapi when you need that validation, you can only most probably can a high chance is when you are able to articulate and share it with another person that you trust, and that person holding that space validates it for you. So that validation is actually very important sebenarnya. Sebab kadang-kadang kan kalau kita sedih, kalau kita marah pun kita rasa macam okay, is it right to be feeling this way kan? And then kita rasa macam why isn't anyone, or we feel misunderstood contohnya. We feel that people don't understand us. Tapi kalau kita tak luahkan, if we don't express it, if we don't articulate it, then how can it come? Jadi that's why holding space and providing validation is actually very important, especially if you're in crisis. Sebab and the thing that you need to say pun to a person to help the person feel validated pun bukan benda yang canggih pun sebenarnya. Just by you saying what you're going through is valid, that in itself can reduce maybe 95% of that, whatever that person is going through, anxiety ke, rasa takut ke, rasa sedih ke. So this is very important. Or what you're going through is a lot, or how can I help you, or I'm here for you contohnya. So these are all really simple words but very very powerful. Okay, so I really hope that helps. Thank you.
Nur Hakimah Muhammad Razali, go on.
Hi, so thank you. So Puan Anita, my question is more towards the person who actually reach out and trying to console the affected person, that's dealing with stuff. So from my observation and like what I've seen enough, sometimes these people who are struggling, they reach out to someone who can understand them, that actually have the same struggles. So people that's having same struggle, how should they like tenangkan themselves back after like giving hand to their said friends,
Okay, right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so this is like a peer support punya soalan tau sebenarnya. Because basically what you're asking is you're going through the struggles and you need to help another person that is also struggling. So that person is reaching out to you when you yourself are going through something as well. Then oops, sorry. So what is really, really crucial is to establish that boundary from the beginning sebenarnya. Especially macam you cakap tadi lah that you are reaching out to a person that you trust. So most probably that person really knows you well as well kan sebenarnya. Because what is really, really crucial is when you are helping another person, that you must also take care of yourself. So bila kita nak tolong orang ni, we are giving out a lot of positivity tau, and we are absorbing a lot of negativity. That is usually what it is kan, sebab kita nak tolong orang tu nak luahkan, obviously benda tu semua benda-benda bermasalah. Contohnya Miasa Malaysia is a very good example. The moment you come and you step into Miasa, I'm talking about me and the employees kan, you know that you're coming in an environment where there's a lot of problems, there's a lot of issues. Why? Because a lot of people are reaching out to Miasa kan. So that is why it's very important being the helper, that you yourself take care of your mental health, you yourself orang kata credit your mental health account. Maknanya you do things that you like, you take care of your sleep, your food, you exercise, you know, you practice relaxation techniques, mindfulness, you understand all these things and you learn. So this is why it's very, very important. And even the person yang is reaching out, the helpers cannot be, you know, just one person, especially kalau orang tu dalam keadaan yang sangat chronic ataupun severe kan. So it must be at least, you know, a group of people, a bigger ataupun a wider social support system. So kita tak rasa, bukan nak kata terbeban ya, tapi kemungkinan rasa terbeban itu ada kerana kita sendiri pun orang kata going through challenges. So that is